and welcome to another board game review and gameplay demo. Today's game is a really small card-based skirmish game that is reminiscent of things like Memoir 44, where you've got side A versus side B. But in this case, it is a much smaller game, much faster to learn, much easier to teach, and it takes far, far less time, but it still has amazing elements of strategy in it. The game itself is Battle Line from GMT Games. Like I said, this is a card-based skirmish game similar to things like Memoir 44, Summoner Wars, Mage Wars, all that kind of stuff. And the idea behind this game is that you've got troop cards, which are, there's a total of 60 cards, 6 different colors, ranked 1 through 10 each. And the idea is that you've got flags. You're trying to capture the flags, essentially, is the point of this game. And you're putting down your cards to try to essentially make what is the equivalent of meld, if you all have ever played like Pinochle or Bridge or things of that nature. That's sort of what you're trying to do. But I'll get into that when I talk about the comparisons and then of course the demo as well. Either way, like I said, it is a tremendously fun game, very, very fast to play, surprisingly strategic for the size of the game that it is, and it's one of these games where you can just play over and over and over again in a relatively short amount of time. It's coming from GMT Games, wonderful, wonderful game publisher, things like Twilight Struggle, Labyrinth, Dominant Species, really big, heavy strategic games, and in this little box you get very similar elements of deep strategy, but obviously in a much smaller package, but still can very much make your brain sort of ache a little bit. But that said, we're going to jump right into what this game is similar to. As far as similarities are concerned, I've really already mentioned everything that I wanted to talk about. You know, it is a skirmish-based game that is designed for 2 players. You've got Hera versus Zeus, which is the most similar to this, because that's also a card-based one. You've got Memoir 44, you've got Mage Wars, Summoner Wars, Mythic Battles, all these kinds of games where you've got side A versus side B and just going in and attacking one another. Now, you can make arguments for like Labyrinth and Twilight Struggle, also the GMT games, but the thing is, those have a lot more elements to them compared to something like this, or even like Memoir 44, which is a relatively simplistic skirmish style game. That said, the other major comparison I wanted to make is honestly poker. Poker is, again, a very simple card game, and the whole point is that you're trying to get specific combinations of cards. Like I mentioned, the troop cards, there are 6 colors of them, and there are 10 ranks, 1 through 10, like literally the numbers 1 through 10. And as far as what you can do, as far as the numbers you're trying to get, you can have the equivalent of a high card, which is basically nothing, and you just add the total numbers together. You've got things like matching all the colors, the equivalent of a flush, the equivalent of a straight, but where you've got different colors. You've got you know, the 3 of a kind in this case, because you're putting down a total of 3 cards, so 3 of the same number. And then at the highest level, you've got the equivalent of a straight flush, where you've got like 4, 5, 6, and all of them are purple, whatever it happens to be. But there's a lot of strategy that this combines with other things, and it even gets to the point where you can essentially say, I win that flag, because it is statistically impossible for you to win that. Like, numerically, you can't do it. The cards are not there anymore. You literally cannot do it. And things like that. It's very fun. Like I said, surprisingly strategic. It combines the deeper strategy of these skirmishing mini games, or yeah, mini games, like games that use minis, not miniature games, but either way, I digress. Combines the strategy of those types of games with the relative simplicity and ease to pick up that poker has, but again, still having the strategic aspect of trying to read your opponent, figure out exactly what they're trying to do, figuring out what they're planning to do, all that kind of stuff. It is a great game. It is a ton of fun. And with that, I will jump right on ahead into my demo for how to play. Alright
everybody, we're pretty much completely set up and ready to play some Battle Line. You can see it is a very, very simple game to have and set up and be ready for and all this kind of stuff. Both players will get a hand of 7 troop cards. You can see there's 2 decks here. These are the troop cards and these are the tactics cards. As you go through the game, you spend a card and then you can draw from either pile. That's how you get the tactics cards out of it. This is where a lot of the strategy comes into play. In addition, in between the 2 cards, you set up your flags. These are the things that we are trying to capture. The way you capture them is by playing a total of 3 cards on your side of it. So for example, this is my side and then this is my opponent's side. So what we would do is we would play cards like this. So say I would play a green 5 right there, and then my opponent might play a purple 4 on their side, right? And after each turn we would draw a new card from either the tactics deck or from the troop deck. Again, just depending on what we want at the time. All right, so that is the basis of how the game plays through, and you win by you go through and have a stack of 3 cards, and then you determine what formation you have created. The formations being similar to the poker hands. I'll get into that in just a little bit, but you win by actually capturing 5 of the total 9 flags, or you can capture 3 flags that are right next to each other, directly adjacent, right? If you do that, then you win, because you basically cornered off part of it, right? Or you can win 5 anywhere along it, right? So that's it. That's how the game plays. It's just you play 3 cards on your side of a particular flag. Your opponent plays 3 cards on their side of that flag, and then you compare your hands. Like I said, the way the hands work are very similar to poker. We don't have all of them though, because we're talking about only 3 cards. So we have, for example, the lowest one is called the host, which is anything. So you could have a green 5, a purple 4, and a red 8. If you have that, then you essentially have nothing, because they're not in a particular order. You don't have 3 of the same kind, you don't have 3 of the same color. It's just whatever, it's gibberish essentially as far as the formation is concerned. So what happens is it just gets added together and you would see who wins. So by that same token, your opponent might be playing a 3 blue, a 9 yellow, and a 10 green on that same one. And if they do that, then again, they don't have anything in particular that melds together, so you would just add them together. In this case, this person would have 17, and this person would have 22, so this person would win the flag. And whenever you win the flag, then you just take it and you move it to your side. You leave the cards there though. The cards stay visible because you need to be able to determine what has already been played, so you can see what you can do, and more importantly, what your opponent cannot do. Right? So that's it. That's how that first one works. Again, the host formation, and like I said, that particular one is the lowest of the ones that you can possibly get. And that's how it works if you guys play the same type of formation. Next one is 3 cards of consecutive values, which most people, if you play poker, know as a straight. So for example, you could play the 8 and then the 10 and the 9. You may notice I played them out of order. It doesn't matter the order in which you play them. All that matters is that they are consecutive. And in this case, I've got red, green, and yellow. And again, it doesn't matter what the colors are. And if, for example, if my opponent had played the host formation, which is just the gibberish cards, then I would win no matter what. If I had a 1, 2, and 3, then I would still win. Or I would still win with a straight of a 1, 2, and 3, because the one itself is higher. Right? Next up is the battalion order, which is where you have cards that are the same color. Right? So that means that I could have like a blue 3, a blue 6, and a blue 1. Okay? There we go. We've got 3 cards of the same color, more commonly known as a flush in poker. Right? Easy peasy. Next up is the phalanx. The phalanx are 3 cards of the same value. So for example, you could have green 5, blue 5, yellow 5. There, I got 3 cards of the same value. That's it. All right? And last but certainly not least is the infamous wedge, which is more commonly in poker known as the straight flush. For example, a blue 1, a blue 2, and a blue 3. Right? And again, the way that these are compared is by whatever your opponent plays. It would have to be the same or a better formation, And if it's the same, it would have to be higher values, a higher total value. So for example, I could play 3 5s, and then if my opponent played 3 4s, I would win because 3 5s is higher than 3 4s. Right? Easy enough, right? Those are the basic formations, and the idea is that those are what we are trying to build. If we can build those, then we will have a much easier time defeating our opponents. Now, the tactics cards are what sort of throw a wrench into the whole thing. These can be played just like a normal troop card. However, these change the way that the flags work. For example, the scout. You draw a total of 3 cards from both decks, and then you discard 2 cards from the deck that you've got, right? Or from your hand. And then you've got the traitor card, where you can take a troop card from your opponent's side and put it onto your side anywhere you want. The deserter, where you pick one of your opponent's cards and they just go away. Shield bearers, which count as a 1, 2, or 3 in any color, and you can just say, you know, and you say it when everything resolves, so you don't have to pick it when you play the card. All right, which is kind of a nice thing. I mean, just all sorts of stuff like that that just sort of changes everything. The 2 that I also wanted to make a note of are these. These are the 2 leader cards, Darius and Alexander. You can only play one of these 2 cards during the whole game. You cannot play both of them on your side. You can only play one of them. And these count as any number and any color. Right? So it can be a green 10, it can be a blue 1, it doesn't matter whatsoever. It is whatever you want it to be. All right, that's it. So that's just an example of some of the tactics cards. There are others where it stops the way that the skirmishes form. You've got one where you have to play 4 cards instead of 3, and if you can't play it in the formation, then you get the junk formation, all of that kind of stuff. So with that, I'll go ahead and just play through a couple of rounds. Like I said, it's a very quick, very easy game. I won't play through a whole thing, but I'll give you an idea of how the rounds go back and forth. The way that you actually determine who goes first is you cut the troop deck, and you keep cutting until somebody has more cards, essentially. So if I cut it like this, then, I mean, clearly I don't, clearly this is not more cards than the other thing, but that's how you figure out who goes first. For the sake of argument, we will say the person who is closest to me with this hand of cards will be going first. All right, now you see I've got 2 10s, I've got 2 2s, I've got 2 5s, and a 3. Now, there is a lot of potential for meld here. There's a lot of potential for these formations, and I want to try to get something pretty good. So what I'll do is I will play a card and hope for some good luck from the troop and or tactics deck. So I'll play it right here. It's always a good idea to go for the middle flags first, because if you're talking about trying to get that 3 in a row, then it means that you'll be much, much better off, and you're going to help yourself out a lot more. So I've got, hey look, see, I got a straight right here, 5 6 7, and I actually have 6 7 8, which is even better, and then a 3 4 and a 1. So we'll go ahead and we'll just jump right out the gate with the 6 7 8. Oh, and this guy forgot to draw a card. Hey, look, a 10. Awesome! Yay! So we will go with the 6 on this one. Again, going for the middle ones to not only try to get the 3 in a row yourself, but also try to block your opponent. Because we've already got the 6, 7, 8, we'll go ahead and draw a tactics card. Fog. This disables all formation, and the flag is merely decided by the total values of the cards on each side. That can be very, very worthwhile, especially in endgame. Alright, so next up, this guy will play another one of the 10s. Alright, and then draw a tactics card. Shield bearers counts as the 1, 2, and 3 of any color. This guy will go ahead and do the 7. Okay, and then grab another tactics card. Redeploy. Choose any one troop or tactics card from your own side next to an unclaimed flag, which means that you have not resolved it yet. And then you can place it at an empty slot anywhere on your side. Okay, and then I'll go ahead and play my last 10, and I'll grab a troop card. This guy. And last but not least, the 8 and a troop card. Okay, so here's the thing. Now, these are both finished on either side. The thing is, this one is finished for this person, this one is finished for my opponent. The problem is that the other person can still play cards. If my opponent here plays like a 1, 2, 3 blue, or a 1, 2, 3 whatever, they would win. if it was that next formation, because the way it works is even if they can match my 3 10s, which is possible because there's a total of 6, it is possible, the last person to put down a card when the formations are tied loses. So they would lose that. They would have to put 3 in a row that are the same color. But basically, these cards stay here unless I or my opponent plays a tactics card that changes it. Right? Now, what I could potentially do is if I had a tactics card that helped me out in terms of like adding the 4th card. This person got the fog one, which just makes you add the totals and that kind of thing. But either way, this is the kind of strategy that you got to think about. Now, eventually down the line, what you'll need to start thinking about is how it is that you're going to how you're going to say that you are beating your opponent. So, for example, I now have 2, 2, and 2. So what I'll do here is I'll play the 2 here, and then we'll just say I play a 3 over here. I know I'm not drawing cards, but this is just for the sake of argument. Hey, look, a 4, perfect. And then 2. Alright, so since I have played 3 of a kind, or a set, as you might call it, and they played 6, 7, 8, I win, because I have a higher formation, so the flag goes to me right here. Okay? That's how it works. I know you can't really see it because of the camera, but it goes to me, it goes to my side on the other side of the cards. And that says that I have now claimed it, and it is my card. So what the way that this game eventually works is that you will be able to start saying that your opponent cannot win something. You'll be able to say there is no card that will be able to help you. And that is something that's difficult to tell you about in this context, but essentially it would boil down to something like, let's see here. So let's say I've got a bunch of 9s out and a 10. So they have 2 cards out. I put out 1, and you notice they have 8, 9 of blue, and I've got 8, 9 of purple. Okay, so here's the problem where now I'll be able to do this, and I'll say I play my 10, and it is 10 purple. So now I have the highest possible hand that I can get. I have 3 in a row of the same color, and the thing is, he's got 8, 9 blue. The problem is this is the 10 blue. So I would say you cannot win, right? I mean, he would win, he would lose anyway because he would have to put the card down last. But once you have your 3, then you can tell your opponent you can't win. You have to explain why. You can't use the cards in your hand. So if for whatever reason, if I had the blue 10 in my hand, I wouldn't be able to say, I have the blue 10 in my hand, so you can't win. It has to be out on the board, visible to everybody. You say, the blue 10 is out, you can't do anything. You cannot win this. As another situation, if I had set up 1, 2, and 3 all of orange and my opponent had a 5 and 6, then they would be able to win if they had either the 7 or the 4, because they would go 4, 5, 6 or 5, 6, 7. But the thing is, then I would say, you can't win this because I've got the 7 red right here and I've got the 4 red right here, and those are the cards that you would need in order to beat me. And because of that, even though they didn't play a 3rd card, I would win. Again, that is the part that is the hardest to sort of set up and really get going and to understand. But once you played a few times, once you figured it out, it really, really helps. Not only that, but again, using the tactics cards to your advantage. The thing is that, for example, this person, they could have played a leader card. You can only play one of these through the whole game, but they could have played this and then said, this is a red 7. Okay? It's essentially a double of that card, but you can't say that a tactics card in your hand will stop your opponent from winning, right? It has to be a tactics card that is on the table. You have to play it first. All right, well, not first, but it has to be on the table before you can say, no, you're wrong, I can still win this, right? Because these 2 are the ones that, as far as I'm concerned, are the ones that could let you win. Right? But that's pretty much it. Those are the essentials for Battle Line. I hope that you enjoyed this little demo for it. I went over at least most of the aspects for it. Again, some of the stuff that you'll have to think about as you're playing it yourselves is when and how to use the tactics cards, where to put them, how to utilize them, where to focus your attacks, because again, the middle is great for trying to get that 3 in a row, but at the same time, at at the edges, that's really where you're going to end up winning most of your games, because that's where you're going to get that, you know, total of 5, and you'll be able to be done with it. But that said, that's it for my little demo. Like I said, it's not super long, little short one here for you guys, but we will go right on ahead into general pros and cons, as well as overall conclusions for this game.
Well, that's it for my demo for Battle Line. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, it was going to be pretty short. It is a very, very simple game on its surface, but when you really dive into it, you can really start to see all of the important strategic decisions that you have to make. But as I mentioned, it is now time to go into the pros and cons, and then just some general conclusions and overall discussion for the game. So first and foremost, I have already mentioned the vast majority of the pros for this game that I like. First and foremost, I love the fact that this is a skirmish game that is small and easy to pick up. That is one of the biggest issues that I have with like the miniature-based skirmish games. They are great, they are a lot of fun, but it is a much bigger commitment than I can normally make, and that's part of the problem. Whereas something like this, or Hera versus Zeus, games like that, so much easier, but still strategic enough that I feel that I really get my time's worth out of it, because you know it sort of rattles your brain for 15 or 20 minutes, and then it's like, awesome, we got it, we're done. The other major pro for me is I just love the way that the game melds with itself. I love the fact that you've got the different win conditions of getting either 3 in a row or 5 total of the flags and things of that nature. I love that it keeps you calculating in your mind what's still out there, what's still available, what can I potentially get out of these troop cards, are there any tactics cards that might be useful, all of that kind of stuff. These are things that are tremendously helpful just in terms of keeping you on your toes, keeping you thinking, keeping your brain working. There are 2 major cons that I wanted to mention. The thing is with these both, though, that they really become mitigated the more that you play the game. So you can take this with a grain of salt. It's good and or bad depending on how you view it. But that said, the first major con for me is the relative difficulty of being the second person to go, because the first few times that I played it, we had the problem where the second person was always reacting to the first player. And the problem becomes then that it becomes less about your strategy and more about trying to mitigate what the other person is doing. And that is not a good way to play this game. That is not the ideal situation. The thing is, again, with that, you can mitigate that entire aspect of it by simply ignoring what the other person does. If you are not paying attention to them in terms of trying to react to what they do, just say, okay, fine, you can have that flag, I'm just going to ignore it, I don't care, I'm going to focus over here and do my own thing. Once you can get into that mentality and really start going through it and getting that to work, then it becomes so much easier, and it becomes a much better balance in terms of the actual gameplay itself. The other major con is, for me, having newer players try out the game, and then trying to figure out what it is they're still able to do, trying to get those calculations moving in their minds. Now, again, it is relatively simple. You're talking about 6 colors and 10 cards, and you can look at the board at any time and see what's there, see what's not there, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it can be very difficult for people to start keeping track of those, especially once the tactic cards start coming out, because then it just becomes even more arduous in your own mind. And that can kind of slow the game down a little bit, again, especially with new players. I personally really don't mind it, but I know a lot of people, again, especially in like the skirmish tactics style of games, they can be very, very frustrated when their opponent is just, not dilly-dallying around, so to speak, but just, focused and trying to figure out a move and sort of getting the analysis paralysis type of thing. It can be very unfortunate. But again, once you've played it enough, then you really start to be able to look at that and just see them almost immediately what can and cannot be done, whether by yourself or your opponent. But either way, those are really my 2 only cons, because it's a great game. It is a great condensed version of these awesome skirmish games. And that said, my general conclusions, I will say, try it. Seriously. Like I said, this game was suggested to me on several of my videos as comments, and I absolutely love it. I got it relatively cheap. It's only like $10, $15, maybe $20 if you're paying like through the nose for it. So definitely give it a try. If you don't buy it yourself, then find somebody who already owns it, and seriously, just play it. That's really what it boils down to. The only thing that might be bad is you'll end up playing it too much and get sick of it after a little while, and then you'll have to wait a couple weeks before you try again. But that's it. That's it. Other than that, it is a wonderful game, a perfect example of how you can get good strategy in a small package. Battle line, I absolutely love it. GMT Games, it's a great game. It's a Knizia game. Like, what else do you want from it? What else do you want? Tremendously fun game. Go out and try it right now. Battle Line, an amazing game. I hope that you enjoyed my little review for it. With that, please let me know in the comments below what you think of this game, if you enjoyed my review of it, if the demo helps you out, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, and if there are any particular games that you would like to see me review in the future, then please let me know that as well. But thank you very much for being here, and I will see you next time.
Thank you again, everybody, for watching my review and gameplay demo for Battle Line. Again, this is a great example of what you can do with a skirmish-style game in a small package, and it works out great. Please let me know what you think of both this game as well as my review for it, if you like it, if you don't like it, blah, 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 etc. As I said, also do let me know if there are any particular games you'd like me to see me review in the future, and as always, there are several of my playlists linked up at the top of the page, so you can see more of my work, and you can click on the big giant subscribe button to see more of me in the future. Thank you very much again, and I will see you next time.